My name is Elena Carter. I'm 29 years old, and I didn't realize my relationship had already been dying, slowly, quietly, until my boyfriend laughed and said, "You're too sensitive, not a real woman." Everyone else laughed too. I'd been with Mark for 3 years. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, the kind where people pretend paper plates and cheap beer count as personality. We clicked immediately, moved in together after a year and a half. Good jobs, nice apartment, talks about marriage someday. On paper, we were solid. But there was a pattern I kept explaining away. Mark liked jokes, but not the kind that bring people closer. He had a habit of turning me into the punchline, especially in front of his friends. He mocked how I got excited about small things, how I wrote notes instead of texts, how I liked holding hands in public. He said it was teasing. It never felt playful. I told myself I was overreacting, that love meant having a thicker skin, that if everyone else was laughing, maybe I was the problem. The night everything finally snapped was his friend Melissa's birthday dinner. Trendy Italian place downtown. 8 of us squeezed around a table that smelled like garlic and red wine. I'd had a brutal week at work, 12-hour days trying to save a project that was already sinking. I wanted to stay home. Mark insisted I come. Halfway through dinner, someone asked about Valentine's Day plans. Cabins, weekend trips, reservations. "What about you two?" his friend Nicole asked. Mark didn't miss a beat. "Elena made reservations at that French place I like," he said, "and she wrote me this whole handwritten letter about why she loves me." I smiled, thinking he meant it kindly. Then Nicole laughed. "A letter? What is this, the 1950s? Mark grinned. "It was a bit much. Just get flowers like a normal person." The table laughed. I felt heat crawl up my neck. "I thought you liked romantic things," I said quietly. "I like normal romantic things," Mark replied. "Not diary entry stuff. You're extra." Extra. I repeated it in my head like maybe it would soften the second time. "You're too sensitive," he added, still smiling. "Not a real woman." The laughter exploded. Something inside me went very still. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I looked at him and said calmly, "Maybe, but a real woman doesn't stay where she's mocked." The table went silent. Mark's smile faltered. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm done being entertainment," I said. I stood up, dropped cash on the table, and walked out. Mark didn't follow me. That told me everything. When he finally came outside 10 minutes later, I was already in an Uber. By the time I got home, my hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I packed a bag, just enough for a few days. When Mark walked in and saw me, he laughed nervously. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said, zipping the bag. "I'm being done." That night I left, and at 2:07 a.m., my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, Elena, it's Sarah. We need to talk." I stared at the screen and answered. I didn't text back right away. Not because I was trying to be dramatic, not because I wanted anyone to chase me. Because at 2:07 a.m., when you're sitting on someone else's couch with your overnight bag at your feet, your whole body is still buzzing from adrenaline, and the smallest thing can feel like a trap. "Hey, Elena, it's Sarah. We need to talk." Sarah was Mark's best friend since college, the one who always sat closest to him at dinners, who knew his stories before he finished telling them, who laughed a half second too early, like she wanted him to notice. If she was reaching out to me now, it wasn't to comfort me. It was either to defend him or to unload something heavy enough that she couldn't sleep with it. I typed, "About what?" Her reply came instantly. "About Mark, and about you. Please, just call me." So I did. She picked up on the first ring. "Thank you," she said, like she'd been holding her breath for hours. Her voice was tight, nervous, guilty, something trembling underneath. I didn't know how to do this without sounding like I'm stirring things up. I shifted on Derek's couch. Yes, Derek, my coworker, the one who didn't ask questions, just let me in and handed me a blanket like he understood that sometimes your life falls apart quietly. "Why are you calling me?" I asked. Silence. Then Sarah exhaled. "Because what happened tonight wasn't okay." My throat tightened. "No kidding." "I mean it," she said quickly. "I'm not calling to excuse him. I'm calling because someone needs to stop pretending this is normal." My fingers curled around my phone. "Sarah, what is this?" She hesitated, like she was choosing between loyalty and truth in real time. "Elena," she said softly, "you're not the first woman Mark has done this to." I went still. "I know he dated before me," I said, forcing the words out carefully. "That's not exactly a revelation." "No, not like that." Her voice dropped. He has a type." A cold, sour feeling crept into my stomach. "What type?" I asked. Sarah's words came out slowly, like each one cost her something. "Women who care, women who are emotionally open, women who—" She paused, and I heard the faint crack in her voice. who don't fight back right away. I stared at the ceiling. Derek's living room light was off, but the street lamp outside bled a dim orange glow through the blinds. Everything looked washed out, like reality had been drained of color. "That's a pretty disgusting thing to say about your best friend," I whispered. "It's worse," Sarah said, "because it's not me saying it, it's him." I sat up, my heart started beating faster. "What do you mean?" She swallowed. I could hear it. "He's said it before, more than once. Not in those exact words, but he's joked about it. About how emotional women are easier to handle, how they're grateful for basic affection, so they'll put up with things." I felt like I'd been punched in the ribs. I thought about every time Mark had told me I was lucky, he was patient with me. Every time I cried during a movie and he smirked like it was embarrassing. Every time he'd said, "You're adorable when you're upset," like my feelings were a toy. "You're making him sound like a predator," I said, my voice thin. Sarah didn't argue. After a beat, she said, "After you left the restaurant, he laughed." My stomach dropped. "What?" I said sharply. "He laughed," she repeated. "He said you proved his point, that you couldn't take a joke. He said, you'd come back in a few days once you calmed down." I squeezed my eyes shut. There it was, the part of me that still wanted to believe tonight had been a mistake, that he'd crossed a line without meaning to. He meant it. He was proud of it. "And you all just sat there?" I asked, the anger finally finding air. "No," Sarah said quickly. "Some of us pushed back. Melissa told him he went too far." Nicole looked uncomfortable for once, but Mark just shrugged like it was nothing, like your humiliation was background noise. My chest felt tight, but not from grief this time, from clarity. "So why tell me now?" I asked. "You've been his best friend for years." Sarah's voice went smaller. "Because I've watched him do this to 3 different women, and I keep telling myself it's just his humor, just his insecurity, just his flaws." She paused. "But tonight, when you stood up and said what you said, so calm, so clear, something in me snapped. I didn't speak, I couldn't." Sarah continued, faster now, like she needed to get it all out before she lost her courage. "He always does it the same way. He builds them up privately, makes them feel chosen, safe. Then when they're attached, he starts performing. He needs an audience. He needs to be the one with power in the room. And the easiest way to do that is to make the person beside him look smaller." The words landed one by one like stones. My mind flicked through memories I hadn't let myself label as warning signs. Mark telling his friends I was cute because I kept a gratitude journal. Mark laughing when I said I didn't like being interrupted. Mark calling me fragile when I asked him not to talk about our sex life in front of people. I'd kept forgiving because I thought forgiveness was love. But love wasn't supposed to feel like self-erasure. "Did he ever love me?" I asked before I could stop myself. It came out raw, almost childlike. Sarah didn't answer immediately. When she finally did, her voice was quiet. "I think he loved what you gave him," she said. "Attention, warmth, someone who made him feel important." My throat tightened. "But you?" I whispered. Sarah sighed. "I don't think he knows how to love someone without needing to feel superior to them." The silence after that was brutal. Not dramatic, just final. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone like it might suddenly light up with a message that rewrote reality. It didn't. Mark texted me around 8 a.m. "Can we talk? Last night got out of hand." Out of hand. Like it was a spilled drink, like it was a misunderstanding. I didn't respond. By noon, the tone changed. "You're really doing this? Over a joke?" By evening, it was anger. "You're throwing away 3 years because you can't take teasing." Then guilt. "I didn't sleep. I'm sick over this." Each message was a different mask. None of them were accountability. I stayed at Derek's for 4 days. He didn't pry, just made coffee in the morning and gave me space in the evenings. Once he asked gently, "Do you feel safe?" And that question, so simple, hit me harder than everything Mark had said. Because the answer used to be yes, and now it wasn't. On day 5, I went back to the apartment while Mark was at work. I didn't do it like a dramatic movie scene. No slow-motion tears, no final look around the room. I walked in like someone entering a place that no longer belonged to her. The apartment smelled like him, his cologne, his shampoo, the faint metallic scent of his keys in the bowl by the door. I opened the closet. Half of it was his. And that was when I remembered something that used to feel harmless. The lease was in his name. When we moved in, I'd offered to be added. I'd said it made sense. Security. Partnership. Mark had smiled and said, "It's easier this way." At the time, I thought he was being practical. Now, standing there with a cardboard box in my hands, I realized something colder. He'd wanted the power to tell me I was replaceable, to hold the roof over my head like leverage. I packed everything that was mine. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, books, my laptop, my grandmother's necklace from the top drawer he never opened because he didn't care what I kept as long as I kept him comfortable. I didn't take the couch, I didn't take dishes, I didn't even take the throw blanket I'd bought, the one he used every night. I took only what was undeniably mine, because I wanted it clean. I left my key on the kitchen counter, and I wrote a note, not emotional, not pleading, not poetic, just truth. Mark, I've moved out completely. I'll send money for my portion of this month's utilities since I was here part of the month. Take care. No, I hope we can be friends. No, maybe someday. No room for him to twist it into a pause instead of an ending. I carried the last box out, my arms shaking from weight, and something else. Something like grief, but sharper. When I got to Derek's car, my phone buzzed. A call. Mark. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. Then it buzzed again. Another call. Then a text, just 3 words. Where are you? My throat tightened. Not because I missed him, but because for the first time I understood what he was really panicking about. Not losing me. Losing control of me. And I didn't even realize how right I was until a week later. When Mark showed up at my office, security called my desk at 10:18 a.m. Hi, Elena. There's a visitor in the lobby asking for you. I already knew. My stomach didn't drop, my hands didn't shake. It was almost worse than fear, this dull, exhausted certainty. I'll come down, I said. When the elevator doors opened, Mark was standing by the front desk like he belonged there. Same jacket he always wore when he wanted to look harmless. Same slightly slouched posture, like he was trying to communicate regret with his spine. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes. Hair unwashed. The kind of disarray people use as proof of suffering. Elena, he said, relief flooding his face when he saw me. Thank God. We don't need to do this, I said calmly. We do, he insisted. Please, just 5 minutes. I glanced at the security guard, then back at Mark. Say what you need to say. He ran a hand through his hair. I messed up. I know that. I crossed a line and I'm not proud of it. But I've been thinking a lot. I started therapy. I nodded slowly. Good. His eyebrows lifted, surprised. You believe me? I believe you started therapy, I said. That's not the same thing as believing you've changed. He swallowed. My therapist says I use humor as a defense mechanism. I almost laughed. Mark, I said evenly, mockery isn't a defense mechanism, it's a weapon. His jaw tightened. That's not fair. What's not fair, I replied, is spending 3 years shrinking myself so you could feel big. People were starting to glance over. He noticed and lowered his voice. Is this about Sarah? He asked. Did she put things in your head? No, I said. She confirmed things I already felt, but kept ignoring. His face drained of color. She told you? She told me the truth. He shook his head. She's exaggerating. She always takes things too seriously. I held his gaze. That's funny. You say that about every woman who disagrees with you. He opened his mouth, closed it. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said finally. I thought you understood me. I understood you perfectly, I said. I just stopped accepting it. His voice cracked. I love you. I didn't flinch. You loved having someone who forgave you, I said softly. Those aren't the same thing. He reached for my arm. I stepped back. Please don't come here again, I said. This isn't appropriate. So that's it? He asked, desperation seeping in. 3 years and you just walk away? You walked away from respecting me a long time ago, I replied. I'm just catching up. I turned and went back to my desk. I didn't look back. He didn't stop. 2 days later, flowers arrived at the office. White lilies, my favorite. The card read, I'm sorry, please talk to me. I gave them to the receptionist, who later told me she'd taken them to a nursing home down the street. Then came the Instagram request, from an account with no profile picture and a bio that said starting over. Blocked. Then another. Blocked. Then a text. I found some of your things. Books, your jacket, kitchen stuff. Can I drop them off? I stared at the message for a long time. I did want my books, but I didn't want him. You can leave them with the building manager at my place, I replied. Please don't come up. Okay, he texted. I understand. He didn't. The next day, when I went to pick up the box, the manager, an older man with kind eyes, pulled me aside. Just so you know, he said quietly, a man tried to get your apartment number yesterday. Said he was your boyfriend. My chest tightened. Did you give it to him? No, he said firmly. We don't do that. I told him to leave the package and go. Thank you, I said, my voice unsteady. If he comes back, he added, we'll call security. Already noted in the system. I nodded, suddenly aware of how thin the line was between persistence and something darker. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because I missed Mark, Because I finally saw him clearly. He wasn't sorry. He was panicking because I'd broken the script. I started therapy the following week. Not because I was broken, but because I needed to understand why I'd stayed. Dr. Chen was calm, direct, and completely uninterested in sugarcoating. You were in a relationship with someone who needed you to be small so he could feel powerful, she said during our second session. That's not love, that's exploitation. The word sat heavy in the room. I thought if I just showed him enough patience, I said, staring at my hands, he'd learn to treat me better. That's the trap, she replied. You can't earn empathy from someone who benefits from your pain. Each session peeled something back. I started noticing patterns, not just with Mark, but in other areas of my life where I'd apologized too quickly, where I'd laughed off disrespect, where I'd mistaken endurance for strength. Meanwhile, Sarah checked in on me occasionally. She'd cut ties with Mark after our conversation. The fallout had been ugly. He's telling people you gaslit him, she said over coffee one afternoon, that you made him feel like the villain over harmless jokes. I smiled sadly. Of course he is. But it's not working, she added. Nicole stopped hanging out with him. Melissa told him flat out he crossed a line. That's their journey, I said, not mine. How are you really? Sarah asked. I considered it. Not healed, I said honestly, but free. She nodded. That counts for something. 2 weeks later, I was out at a bar with Derek and a few coworkers when the door opened, and there he was. Mark, with another woman. Our eyes met across the room. For a split second, his face lit up with something like triumph. Then he saw my expression. Calm, unimpressed, done. He put his hand on the woman's arm possessively, like he was trying to mark territory. I turned back to my drink. 10 minutes later, he was standing at our table. Elena, he said, can we talk? I didn't even sigh. I'm good, I said. Please move on. Just 5 minutes. Derek glanced at me. I shook my head. I don't need rescuing, I said softly. Mark's jaw clenched. You've moved on already? He glanced pointedly at my coworker Amy, who was standing beside me. She's my coworker, I said flatly. And it's not your business. His face hardened. So that's it? Yes. You're really going to hold one bad night against me forever? I met his eyes. It wasn't one bad night, I said. It was 3 years of bad ones. You just didn't notice because I kept forgiving you. He stood there waiting, for tears, for doubt, for me to shrink. I didn't. Finally, he scoffed and walked away. The woman he'd come with followed, confusion written all over her face. Derek raised his glass. Clean break. Feels like it, I said. I didn't know then that this wasn't the last time Mark would try to rewrite the ending. But it was the last time he'd get access to me. The bar encounter should have shaken me. Old me would have replayed it for weeks. His tone, his posture, the way he tried to make me doubt myself with a single sentence. I would have dissected my reaction, wondering if I'd been too cold, too harsh, too final. But something had shifted. Instead of spiraling, I went home that night, took off my shoes, and slept. Not perfectly, not peacefully, but without dread. That was new. 3 months passed quietly. Not dramatically, not cinematically. Quietly, in the way real healing tends to happen. I settled into my new apartment. A small one-bedroom with decent light and absolutely no memories attached to it. I bought furniture slowly, chose things intentionally, nothing Mark had ever commented on or mocked, no compromises disguised as keeping the peace. I kept going to therapy. Some weeks I talked about Mark. Other weeks I didn't mention him at all, and that felt like progress. You're not angry anymore, Dr. Chen observed one afternoon. I don't have the energy, I said. Anger still centers him. She smiled slightly. That's a good instinct. Mark stopped contacting me about 6 weeks in. No dramatic final message, no apology, no explanation. Just silence. Sarah filled in the gaps. He's dating the woman from the bar, she told me over text. And it's starting again. I didn't ask what it was. I already knew. He makes jokes about her being high maintenance, about how emotional she gets, Sarah continued. Same comments, same audience. Some people don't learn lessons. They just repeat patterns with new faces. That's not your responsibility, Dr. Chen reminded me when I mentioned it. You already graduated from that class. She was right. I started dating again, not because I was lonely, but because I was curious. Curious about what connection could feel like without tension baked into it. I went on a few casual dates. Nothing serious, nothing rushed. Then Amy, my coworker from the bar, asked me out for coffee. I said yes. Not because she was perfect, not because sparks flew, but because she was kind. During that coffee, I mentioned, briefly, that I'd had a rough week. She didn't interrupt, didn't minimize, didn't joke. She just listened. And when I finished, she said, "That sounds exhausting." I'm glad you told me. It was such a small thing, but it landed like proof. Proof that respect wasn't rare. Proof that I hadn't been asking for too much. Proof that what I needed wasn't unreasonable. It had just been inconvenient to the wrong person. Derek asked me one night, over takeout and bad TV, if I ever regretted the way I left. Just walking out like that, he said. No warning, no discussion. I thought about it. About the dinner, the laughter, the sentence that rewired everything. No, I said finally. I'd been warning him for 3 years. He just didn't believe me. Sometimes people don't listen to boundaries. They only notice exits. I don't wish Mark harm. I genuinely hope he figures out whatever made him believe superiority was intimacy. But that's not my work anymore. My work is simpler now. I build a life where my emotions aren't a liability, where sensitivity isn't something I apologize for, where affection isn't a punchline. I spent years being told I was too much, too emotional, too serious, too sensitive. Now I understand the truth. I was never too sensitive. I was exactly sensitive enough. And the right people will know the difference.